Every monumental achievement begins as a simple dream, but a dream alone held only in mind is just a wishful thinking. To transform it into something tangible, we must first turn it into a goal, which is defining what exactly we want to achieve and setting up timeframes. And with these steps in place, it stops being a mere fantasy, but rather becomes a goal we are committed to reaching. And once we have that definition, next step is building a plan, breaking the goal down into manageable steps and milestones, and having a plan set up that gives us a roadmap from vision to reality. So all of this sounds very simple, and whereas that we are pretty much used to hearing about setting up a business. In fact, every single point mentioned here is not simple. According to statistics, 80% of businesses fail during their early development period, and just a handful of them grow to have annual revenue in 9 digits, not even speaking about billions of dollars. So what I want to say is that doesn't mean that all those failed entrepreneurs have had bad products. In fact, some of them are very great, and people needed those. Those products and ideas could ideally disrupt the market, but they got lost in the market, and millions of ideas are getting lost every day because we are lacking executional skills. Talking about founders, entrepreneurs, executives, managers, and lack of this skill set costs our companies, our vision, our product go bankrupt. So in summary, moving from dream to goal to action is a deliberate process that requires executional skill set and thorough planning. With this said, welcome to Growth Architect. I'm Hovo. I've built one 7-digit business and I'm on my way of building my second one with a plan to have it annual revenue in tens of millions of dollars. And I'm making this video to help us all succeed in our mission and have the most chances possible in this market where competitiveness is probably on its highest level in past decades. So first topic I want to talk is about definition and differentiations between dream and the goal. So what's a dream? It's something we all start with. It's something very, very important, something true, and something that is deeply wired within us. At a certain point, it becomes a part of our identity and a vision of how we want life, business, or leadership to look like in years to come. But what no one tells us that dreams don't die because they are impossible. In fact, if you are a manager, if you are a business owner, just open your office door and you will see tens or hundreds of people whose dreams have died. Were those dreams impossible? Of course not. Most of the time, the problem, they never really became goals. And this doesn't only apply to dreams that have been when we were teens, and then some of us became employees and never lived the life we had expected us to have. This also applies to business owners whose business is stuck at a certain level and doesn't have growth, or it's simply failing. I want to go deeper down the emotional level of dream and only then definition to goal, because we need to make sure we understand concepts and key aspects of our human nature fundamentally, because businesses are built by humans. So you need to first know yourself. You need to recognize your ego, your intentions, your mentality, each of us talking about that, and only then we can come to decision and find the right steps and find the way that is really true for our lives. So dream is in early stages is fuzzy, emotional, full of hope, but rarely full of direction. A goal, on the other hand, is something we take by force. We are ready to confront it. We design our life around our goals, and we build systems in our lives that can carry its weight. So a dream transformed into structured workflow, life, and plan can be defined as a goal. Next step is operationalizing that goal, and this is something we are going to talk about. Then over time, if we start enjoying the process, I want to make sure that we all understand that we are not going to enjoy the process right away. When you go to gym and you start carry weight, it's not fun at all, at least for the first weeks. At least I'm not the best example of that, as I have been going gym for a while, but then I stopped after having my first child, and I just have to get back to the workflow, but obviously it wasn't fun. And then when you get used to that workflow, you start enjoying the process. You start enjoying every extra weight that you are carrying. So is the goal. Over time, it becomes an entertainment. And you connect to those actions and you want to repeat them over and over again. However, on our way of accomplishing our goals, most people get stuck. And they simply don't make any progress. Some people show up, they say, I'm taking sales calls, I'm executing on my strategy, but we need to look deeper than what is on the surface. Sometimes what we do is just the noise. Actions that are undermining the progress that we have to make. A simple example of this would be of honest truth. For example, you're running a business, you know your numbers, and you know for you to hit your monthly sales goal is having at least 70 calls a month. And then you see that you are having just 10 calls a week, which means you are not going to hit your numbers, so you are not going to get enough number of clients, so you are not going to execute properly, but you don't take any drastic actions. You delude yourself, it's something that's going to fix by itself, which rarely does, although it's sometimes true for certain markets, elections, Q4, full of holidays, really impacts strongly on performance of businesses. But generally, you are never in a situation where you can't take any step to make things better, and you don't take those steps. You don't show up to proactively fix the problems, and you delude yourself, I'm doing everything for my business. In fact, you are not. So it's not just about how it looks like as a third party view, because we humans sometimes undermine our own actions. So this is something to take into account. So especially when things get hard, most of people don't say, hey, I'm quitting, but rather they deliberately create an environment and have lack of actions which bring to collapse, which they then use as an excuse not to execute on strategy or move forward with their goal. And there is a good Bible verse which I which I like, it's kingdom of heaven is taken by force. Even kingdom of heaven is taken by force. Force strong enough to capture that kingdom. So if any of us is thinking we are going to capture success in business, we are going to capture success in family life, we are going to build amazing relationship with our children without force, that is never the case. We are delusional, we are just lying ourselves, and we are not doing what is right, and that's going to have consequences. So you really need, you, me, and everybody else needs to look deeper. And we need to realize that sometimes there is noise which doesn't let us clearly see the reality, so we need to take a step back, we need to calm down and analyze what is going wrong, what is going right, and am I on my right track towards execution of my goal. And this will help you to get unstuck when problems start showing up, which definitely will. Imagine a world where there are no problems for businesses. Everybody would be a business person. Much like a currency. If everything is expensive, dollar doesn't have, if everything is cheap, everybody can afford anything, money simply doesn't have any value. So it's not simple, it is never going to be simple. But if you are powerful enough, if you have that strength of will and commitment, you are going to make it, I'm going to make it, I hope everybody of us makes. Although most of the time people fail because we fail to find inner strength needed to succeed. And I want to tell you something that happened to me, just example from my life. There was a season I told myself I was doing everything I could. And this was probably 5 or 6 years ago, and everybody of us would find a relatable time frame in our lives. I was running tours, I was doing business, getting tourists, showing them the country, and it seemed like I'm making a great business. However, it was far from truth because that business didn't bring enough revenue, and then I had to switch to web development. I started to create websites, and I started moving to Upwork. Upwork, everything looked great. I was just bringing enough money home. These were my first entrepreneurial adventures, and again, I knew I could apply. And the way Upwork works, you keep applying to a number of jobs. Probably 3 to 5% of them respond me, or anybody who's using the platform, and then you get a deal or you don't get one. So at a certain point, when I was just tired from that constant process of getting clients, I was simply applying for a number of jobs that were simply not enough for me to bring enough revenue. So I had significant financial troubles. Was that something I could foresee and make it better? Yes, but I wasn't determined enough. It was a period of life where I was not too successful. I had my personal problems. So things didn't work out. I had another downtime in my life when my first child was born. A lot of pressure came to me, and essentially I lost focus on the business. I want to be clear, on the surface it looked like I was doing everything, but the truth is I was indeed in full understanding that things are not looking right. And then I used most of my strategic financial reserves to cover for the losses. And then I got back, I decided that I'm going to move towards my goal no matter what. So those downtimes, those shifts in life can happen because of various reasons, but we need to first be honest with ourselves and be strong enough towards hitting our goal no matter what. And if you fall, which happened to me multiple times, we need to make sure we stand up and we keep going stronger. Personally, for me, I had a number of periods of life where everything didn't look good. Everything seemed like I would be losing my business. I wouldn't be able towards hitting my financial and life goals. But then I fought for it, and things started to look better, and everything seemed to optimize down the road. So for me, and probably for everybody here, is that we shouldn't delay decisions and know exactly which are trade-offs that we are making. So once we are clear that we are going to grab our goal, we are going to fight for it no matter what, we want to make sure we have a workflow that is going to help us to get there. And we are going to talk about workflow yet in slightly later part of this video, but number one most important tool for you would be having measurable goals. So what do I mean by measurable goals? It can be the number of sales calls you are going to get in a week. It can be, for me, for example, a number of videos which I want to upload to YouTube channel to support people and myself as well, because what I found out down the years is teaching and sharing is the best way of education. When you share, ideas explode in your head, and whatever you had there, it gets 10 times more, and you yourself become better. So I always had in mind cells which regenerate. One cell generates another two, and then things just grow in number with the same model. So it's the same with sharing. When we share, we win together, and we make a better world. And that's also somehow set up into our nature. So put everything into measurable goals. It can be number of sales calls, a number of videos uploaded if you are initial stage, a number of books you read, a number of videos that you watch that's going to help you improve on what you are doing. And over the time, if you stay committed towards your measurables, you are going to definitely succeed, because most of people can't commit for a long period of time. And this is true for any industry. People start, most of them are simply lost in a few weeks. They just don't keep the same intensity. They just don't do whatever they are supposed to do at all. And doing nothing and doing with lesser intensity, it would eventually come to the same outcome, which are no results. It's just doing with less intensity. It's a very good delusion for any of us, just improvising that we are still there because we don't want to admit that we are losing the war. But the truth is, defeat is already on its way. So if you have measurables, your second step needs to be consistency and efforts that you are putting towards your goal. And there are three clear things that you need to do every day, every week, every month, every year, in order to ensure you are on the right path. You want to have clear steps as defined. What are clear steps that are going to bring me from location A to location B? You want to have them in mind, ideally written down. Second, you want to have clear no's. What are clear no's? So these are actions that I am not going to perform for me to have higher chances of succeeding. And clear sacrifices, which can relate to clear no's. So with this said, clear no is not, if you are not drinking alcohol or anything like that, if you say it's my clear no, that's a lie. You don't do it either way. Your clear no's need to be also clear sacrifices. So what am I going to sacrifice? For example, for me, I like watching soccer games. Typically, they start at midnight and they take about 2 hours. So if I watch them, next day I lose all my efficiency because morning times are my most efficient hours. Then I either don't get enough sleep or I just wake up late. Both of them the same outcome. I don't put effective work hours. So that's a sacrifice. Your sacrifice can be in something else. Sometimes there are days, again, an example from my life, where I don't see my children just enough. I see my kids just a couple of times a day, although my office is right in the first floor and house is on the second. So it's just a couple of minutes, not even a couple of minutes, less than a minute to go and see kids. But that just distracts me. I lose all my focus. So there are days where I'm making a decision, I'm going to see my kids less, and they are like very great kids. One is 2 and the other is 1. And they're great, the most sweet period of their lives. I'm doing that sacrifice for the vision, for the goal that I have in front of me. And your sacrifices will be different than mine, probably. But you need to make sure that you have your clear steps, clear no's, and clear sacrifices. And you need to have all three of these, by the way. You can't slack off from any of them. Just pick 2 or 1, that's easy, and then the other one is harder. Okay, I'm not gonna do that. No, you are either all in or you are out. So you make the choice. It's like in most of sports, there is no prize for second place. Go and lose whatever times you want. You are not gonna get the prize. So if you are fighting for second place, congratulations. You just lost your business and you didn't bring the value. Your business is not going to bring the value and vision to life. And just to be fair, sometimes businesses have great seasons. Sometimes we get those periods where somehow we get great profitability, but it's not just only about money, and that profitability is not going to last long if you don't have don't have your clear goals or clear no's and clear sacrifices, and if your team also doesn't have them. You want to incorporate this vision, you want to incorporate this mentality in your team as well. So why this matters in long term? So I built and scale one company. I'm on a way of scaling second one, and one of them hit 7 figures, another one is still in 6 digits, but we have one very clear plan to have it as an 8-digit business in 2-3 years. And I relied on tactics that didn't go viral last month. They worked. They are similar patterns, not invented by me, but typically they came to me by studying great companies, studying great people, great entrepreneurs, getting the best lessons out of them and incorporating them. And then it hit me that this is a framework how companies scale. This is a framework how people scale. So these frameworks are there, and they are going to be there in decades as well, regardless of technological achievements and advancements that we as human beings are having. Those frameworks are going to exist, and we are going to talk about those frameworks right now. So if we follow these frameworks, it's unlikely we are going to fail, and it makes our chances of success much more higher. There is no guarantee. It's not a business where you will get any guarantee because of a number of factors that come into the game when you want to develop a business, but these are part of those non-negotiables in order for you to have chances to succeed. We don't have control into the future. We don't have control in a number of areas of our business, but we need to make sure, absolutely sure, we put absolutely our most work when it comes to incorporating critical steps that we are going to talk about. And the reason I'm sharing this is not because I've figured all it out myself, but rather I figured it out from people who already figured it out and have successful track records, a number of companies, a number of CEOs, and I have had that also in my own experience scaling my own businesses. So with this said, let's go to an important topic, which is how to be visionary and execute like one. I know it might sound pretty complex. We hear, probably those who are in entrepreneurial world, they hear word visionary a lot. So before we get going into somewhere, I want to tell you visionary is not what most of people imagine. When we hear visionary, we picture exceptional figures with extraordinary talent. Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, people who see what others can't, but that is where most of us are getting everything wrong. These are not God-given talents and capabilities that only special people possess. These are essentially skills that are developed through natural sacrifices layered on top of baseline talent that most of us actually have. Some of us won't have talent in X area. I'm not the best in physics, but I'm the best of something else. Somebody will be better in physics, so we also need to know where our strength is laying. But ultimately, we can build ourselves the way we want. And what separates people who are not successful enough from visionaries that we hear about is the choices, commitment, and persistence over a long period of time. I want you to be very careful about what I'm telling. It's about choice, commitment, and persistence over long periods of time. So it's not one of these, but all of these combined together, which again relates back to clear sacrifices, clear no's, and clear goals, so which are equal to commitments, choices, and persistence. So this isn't like the definition of dreams we talked about earlier, those vague wishes that comes most of the time from our childhood where we hope something might happen without our effort. Vision is built different. If you are strong enough, you go and take it. Again, only strong people take whatever they want. And if you are not, you will watch others what you only imagine. Because without execution, someone will eventually outspace you. That's just the reality. Somewhere, if you are in US, someone in Asia. If you're in Asia, someone in US, sitting in the same chair, thinks how to get the same idea to life. So there is this competition that you don't see, but that competition exists. So, a visionary is someone who sees a different version of reality, who feels and perceives something significant that hasn't happened yet. And this, my friends, takes us a leap of faith. Because it's hard or impossible because of human nature, if we just rely on facts, to believe in something that didn't happen yet, but we believe that it's going to happen. But again, people, visionaries, real entrepreneurs, they know with conviction that only with this leap of faith, with specific steps and commitment, vision can only come to life. And there is just one thing standing between us and the future. It's a set of choices that must be made to get there. So it's not some blurry might happen fantasy, it is seeing something that doesn't exist yet and believing with certainty that you are going to materialize it. For clarity, we are not talking about fortune telling. Most visions are blurred. As we move towards that, they come into sharper focus. So we are going to talk about core ideology yet, but the idea is when you set up a vision, you don't want to set up too specific vision. If you want to revolutionize and bring AI technologies, that's a great core purpose. But if you want to bring AI technology in medical space, or let's imagine AI handling advanced medical areas, that's very specific goal that might be impossible to it because of a number of regulations. So you want to make sure that you have a goal in your business that's actually reachable. And that's important to understand. Everything I say takes into account that we target goals that are actually achievable. Just an example, when Sony was founded, there wasn't a crystal clear vision of the global giant it would become. There was belief it would transform the perception of Japanese-made products worldwide, and it achieved the goal, but there was no clarity how exactly that would look like. Was that a phone, a recorder, a camera? There was just perception of this great goal which it achieved, but there was no clarity again the way it's going to happen. And it exactly happened. So again, just before we close this topic that everybody can become a visionary if right efforts and mentality is there, let me go over this chapter again. Visionaries detect patterns others miss. Patterns that most people are too busy or distracted to notice. They are deeply dissatisfied with the status quo in their lives and business. Why is it important? This definition, there is something very interesting, which is visionaries detect patterns others miss. And this is, my friends, focus. Focus, and you imagine that whatever I'm telling you, it's deeply interconnected with type of people we are. You can't be sitting in your phone for 5 hours a day and be a great visionary because you are too distracted. So our personal growth is part of us being a visionary. Focus, my friend. You don't watch movies 12 hours a day on Sunday and come on Monday with a decision that I'm going to be focused today. That's just not how it works. Focus, if I bring the best definition that comes to my mind, comes from my life experience, is ability to say no to certain things, to concentrate on one single most important action you can perform at a point. And you see how everything again interconnects. Clear sacrifice, clear goals, because you need to know what's your clear single most important action that you can commit at that specific moment, and clear no. So you want to see connections across unrelated domains. Why are most entrepreneurs people who come from technology space? Because, and some most successful of them are people who are above from technology and have some background in customer service or relationship with you, minimal understanding of human society and human nature, because they have more information to relate to. They relate that information and they come up with amazing products or ideal solutions. So, but ideally, some of greatest companies I know, they have two founders. One of them concentrates on product, so extremely tech savvy. Although I want to tell you, best product managers are those who don't just have technical background but also have great understanding of their users, of human psychology. Because I've seen how many technical products fail, and there are a huge number of them. And visionaries, again, these are probably people who are more into the market, understanding of human nature. But again, the most successful of them are people who have minimal technological understanding of how everything works, because only then you can communicate exactly your product and what it brings to the table. So the final question for any of us wouldn't be, am I a visionary, but rather, in which areas do I naturally see possibilities others don't? And more importantly, how do I train myself to notice these patterns in a world where days and weeks often pass unnoticed, where life slips by without real observation? So try answering these questions and they will give you general direction. With this said, I want to move to an important topic, which is core ideology. I have a separate video about that, but main goal of core ideology is setting up your clear nose, your clear values, and your clear purpose. I'm not going to stuck too much on this topic because it's a very, very important one, and it's really not something you can communicate just in a few minutes. But what I can do, I can give you vague and short explanation. So how does that look like? Core ideology consists of two core elements: core purpose and core values. Your core values are what you want to implement in your company. Those can be being humble, striving for technological achievement, serving customers with the most amount of efforts that we can. So these are core values that you can implement. And the second is core purpose. Core purpose is what's your company going after. For example, for Sony, it was, I might be wrong in clear wording, but it was making Japan known to the world and reconstructing Japan to its former growth. So, core purpose is something that can be shifted down the time, but you need to have certain core values in your company. I'm gonna put the link in the video, but core values, so you can go and check how to make your core values, how to create your core purpose. But the idea is that core values are not something that can be changed down the road. They are part of identity of your company. They are part of identity of your life. So with this said, you need that, having into account that you need to have clear core values and clear core purpose in your life, I want to move to next topic is execution gap. And I love it because it's a skill set that most of people don't have. Because you have goals, okay, you turn them into steps, but how do we execute? And this is one of differentiation between visionaries and in the non-visionaries. It's between those who learn to execute, they have vision, and those who don't. Because execution requires numerous skill sets. It's not easy. There is a vast array of capabilities you need to acquire to bring your vision to life. But the moment you start executing, even imperfectly, and I encourage you start imperfectly, you are already in a different league. Why do I encourage you to execute imperfectly? Because Striving to execute perfectly is primarily reasons why most people even don't start. Whatever number of times you prepare yourself for perfection, you are never going to get it, but rather you need to start and make things better every day. In business, there is a great understanding called MVP, minimal viable product. So you want to define what is your minimal viable product to record a video, to launch your product, to launch your website, and just get what's your MVP, minimal viable product, and start from there. Don't wait for perfection. You are never going to start. That's one of the illusions most people and business owners are having. So once you get going, your next step is taking aggressive actions. Actions define us in business and in life, not words, thoughts, dreams, or goals. That's why I'm telling you, execute imperfectly. Fail. Fail as many times as you can in the beginning. That's the right way. That's the right way people are built. Nobody is built perfect right away. We fail a number of times and we get better. So I would say a great way for me to solve this psychological drive in me for perfection was primarily targeting for negative results. So what I would do, I would say this week I need, when I was doing cold calling for a time, and then now I no longer do because it's no longer part of my business model. My goal was not a number of successful conversations, but rather a number of times people would turn me down every day. So my goal was on negative side of things. So if you have this if you have this approach, that would be better in the beginning because it's unlikely you are going to succeed right away, and you want to make sure you fight through every piece of motivation you have to get going properly. So with this said, now we need to understand how we can execute in the best way possible. What are the actions and what are the skill set that we need in execution in order to be successful? Most visionaries never become builders of their vision. There is an invisible wall between those who can see the future clearly and those who can actually construct it. This is the difference between business owners and visionary business owners or managers who train themselves with executional skills. This is what we are going to talk about. From my experience working with hundreds of people, the most impactful leaders aren't just one or the other. They are not just visionaries or the ones who just are able to have great execution in place. So these are both. So if you are a visionary, and I hope you are, your next step is training your executional muscle. Because otherwise you are not going to succeed. So we need to have both of these, and you need to be a person who can translate your vision into concrete steps and bring those steps to execution. And this will make us leaders, if we have that, to naturally scale, because then we will be having skill set of translating highest level of ambitions into frameworks and daily realities. These are skills we must strive to acquire if we don't have yet. And if any of us thinks that we have those skills, that skill set already, I would say it's not something you get. It's something that we train every day, and we become better and better by continuous training. There is no point where there is no longer growth. It's a skill set that needs daily refinement. It's a knife, it's a sword that needs to be sharpened after every single battle, otherwise it will be unuseful. So I'm telling this because I made 1,000 mistakes. And for the sake of clarity, I will make 1,000 more because I am in a war. I'm in a battlefield. So that's normal. If you don't do mistakes, if you don't aim to making things better, if you don't aim towards new endeavors, then you are not going to have those mistakes, and that's not the spirit of entrepreneurship. It's constant fight to bring in something new feature, new products. Sometimes those will fail. That's why I continually sharpen my executional skills, and so is everybody in management space, whether it's founder, owner, or a manager, or someone in executive position. So I was better a month ago than I was 6 months ago. 6 months ago, I was better than a year ago. But eventually, this shows that I'm just better because I'm working on myself, because I know how imperfect I am as a human. And this is one of clear definitions of leaders. The more you grow, the more you start understanding that what you have is nothing. There is still so much more to acquire. There is still so much more to do better. And this is part of leadership. This is part of entrepreneurial life. This is part of life of any visionary person. So we need to train ourselves to embrace the reality that on the path to acquiring the skill set, translating ambitions into framework and actionable steps, we will fail. This is a natural part of growing a business, becoming successful and bringing value to our communities and those around us. So with this said, I want to conclude this part and move over. So conclusion would be recognizing the fact that the bridge between vision and execution isn't just about tactics. It is about identity, recognizing that the greatest visionaries in history weren't just idealists. They were methodical builders who developed processes to make their visions inevitable through continuous refinement of their skill set. Vision without execution is just a daydream. Execution without vision is just busy work. But together, connected by this bridge, they create the foundation for lasting impact. The visionaries who change the world aren't just those who see differently, they are those who build differently. And that capacity exists within each of us, as it is a trainable skill if we commit to developing it on both sides of execution, both being a visionary and being great executionists. Then next step is, once we have vision and executional skill set, is turning our vision, our purpose into clear process that is going to generate great results for our community and people around us. So, and we are naturally are not going to be able to do this on our own terms. One person is unlikely to build a company big enough to support thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. So by the nature of business and life, we are going to involve other people into our companies. So this is going to be one of our key topics of conversation. How do we involve right people in our companies? And I'm going to go over this slightly because it's a topic that needs far bigger explanation. But talking generally, we need to identify how do we involve people who are going to have the same values, who are going to believe into the purpose that we bring, and who are going to be all into the game and they are going to bring their A game. to commit the purpose and the vision of the company. Typically, we have three types of people who can join the company. These are A, B, or C players. So the definition of C player is an employee whom you always need to be on top of, and they always make mistakes and they never get better. So these are the people you want to filter them right away. B players are people who are trainable, who can do their work, but they don't have leadership characteristics. They are not going to take over the process. They are not going to be proactive most of the time, but they are going to bring in the work. And A players are natural leaders who can bring in the work, who are ready to stay extra hours, who are going to commit, and these are the people essentially whom you can live in an office and go for a vacation for a week without worrying your company will collapse. So by nature of business, obviously we don't want to involve C players. That's a virus that you will be bringing to your company, because A players hate working even B players. What even about C players? It's better they stay for an extra 2 hours from their standpoint and do the work instead of relying on those people. B players are essentially, when you hire B players who are not by their nature leaders, you want to make sure these people are trainable and you have a natural grasp that they can be turned into A players if you put enough number of work, give them enough number of instructions, and just help them grow. So you need to have this belief, if you have a B player, that this B player is more closer and leaning towards A player side and can be trained to become one rather than someone who is degraded, because human beings naturally they don't stay in the same position for a long period of time, but mentally and spiritually they either grow and or they degrade. So once you involve your team, this is where your executional skill set is essentially very, very, very important. Your skill set that you need in here is communication of your goal, communication of your vision, and core values towards your people. That's why I first discussed with you core ideology before even coming to how we get the best people to work with us and grow the vision and the company. Your core purpose and core ideology set up in your business are going to be the directions and core guidelines your people working with you are going to be relying on. It's very important because if you have core value, strive for technological advancement, and you have a complacent technical team and your core values are enforced, most of people follow them, those people who are not a fit for that value, for example, a developer from a team who doesn't strive for anything, they are going to be naturally ejected from that environment, because that's simply not the best place for them. If most of people follow those core values, core purpose, and minority who doesn't, they don't feel comfortable in staying in that environment. So it's important for you to communicate that, but also what is more important is making sure that your company and you live by those values. Because I have seen companies with huge writings on a wall of values they are fighting for, of future of the company, but neither the leader, the founder, nor the people in the company would essentially follow that lifestyle. So core values, core ideology is not about what's written on the wall. It's about what is being lived, what is live process in our company built around those values. Is everybody following those values? That's the biggest question to ask. And one example that comes to my mind is a situation in a company which had two technical leads from two departments. And those two department leads were fighting each other, they didn't like each other, and they would always trash talk. And people were not happy working in that environment. So a leader wants to make a decision, fire one of them, but which one to fire? Both of them lead departments that are critical. And ultimately, that decision the leader comes to is that both of them need to be fired because they didn't follow values. Leaving any of these, regardless of any material laws the company will have, would be keeping a virus inside the company. It would be keeping people who are ready to damage the company because of personal dislike in a lead role, would also discourage people under them. So next leaders to come will also know that these are the ways the company works. And they will know these are the values, which are essentially no values. Trash talkers can't have a place in any good company that wants to scale. First rule probably that even doesn't need to be spoken about, you want to make sure you have a good people in your company, good, kind-hearted people. If you don't have those, people are either going to become like them or they're just going to quit, and they might not even communicate too much about that, about the reasons. Second important point, now when you have people, you want to make sure everything is measurable. We had a brief discussions about measurables, but essentially every employee needs to have a measurable goal, and your results need to be controlled. So for customer success team, it can be customer satisfaction call. For you as a leader, it can be a number of sales or revenue that you bring in. If you have someone operational, how many clients we lose on weekly basis, and what's our retention rates. So these are all the numbers. It's really very specific. If it's a product business, how many products have been sold in a week, what are the reviews that we are getting, what are positive or negative reviews. The bottom line is you can't create a great product without a feedback system. Feedback system for you as a company. So that's why most of companies now, they always send us surveys, even those who have monopoly in their fields. So, but also internal. So every employee needs to have clear understanding where they are in terms of their performance. And this is a problem with a number of companies when people don't know, are you happy about them? Are you unhappy about their performance? And this is something you want to avoid, because people by their nature love clarity. So with this certain measurable, with these specifics, you make sure that everybody has a number to rely on, and they have clear indicator, are they doing good or bad on a long term. And how would we communicate this? This is the second topic, because now that we are talking about company with a vision, we need to have clear operations in order to make this successful, and have this feedback loop. So the best operational process I am aware of is EOS, which is entrepreneurial operational system, and they have very very good suggestions how you would need to structure your business operations. And on my personal experience, I also have got to see a few ways where uh, we can always have our hand on a pulse on people that work with us and make sure they are always happy, or if they are unhappy, we handle that and address the issue as soon as possible, or simply figure out that something is going wrong without any delay. So even if you are just if you even just have one person working with you in your company, you already need to incorporate part of this. EOS is more for companies who do 10 million or more. Probably maybe it can be 5. It depends on the structure. These are very advanced systems that also cost much to implement. But the general simple rules that you can implement are daily stand-up standings. If you are doing something about customer service, daily stand-up meetings are essential to go over every question, every problem, and make sure everybody has clarity on their workday and every question is addressed at the beginning of the workday. Then, ideally, a leader should have a meeting with people who work with him at least once a month, and it shouldn't be too much work related. It should be more on personal level. Are you happy? Are you unhappy? What is that I can do for you? What we can do better? And if you are happy, it's good. If you are unhappy, what can we do better to make you happy? If it's personal, how we can support you. And if you have leadership, it's suggestible that you have quarterly, monthly, and annual meetings if you have another second leader in your company, to make sure you are on the same page on a constant basis. And talking about operations, last important note would be implementation of accountability system, which I'm not mistaken is again part of EOS, but it's just an amazing system built by amazing entrepreneurs. I really like that. Accountability system and process ownership is something that should be there for everybody in your team if it's more than just one person in the company. What is it about? The culture of accountability and action helps leaders and employees to clearly understand who is responsible for what. Every process in the company has an owner. If certain aspect of the process fails, you already know who is responsible, and it's not about pointing fingers, but rather that specific person knows that I have a failure in my domain. I want to go and fix it. Everybody has clarity on what they do. And this can be very simple. If you have someone who is head of sales, you need to make it clear that specific system, sales CRM, is under your responsibility. Otherwise, salesperson may assume that control or updates on CRM might be done with second person or someone who needs to have technical problems. Second that it will solve is that maybe your person managing your technical aspect of your business may do something which salesperson might think is under his domain, and then we have collapse. One changes something, second one reverts it back, and problem starts. Your customers get wrong messages, processes break. That's why everybody needs to be very very clear about what needs to be done in order to keep operations as successful as possible. So with this said, your number one goal as a visionary, once you start expanding and you have people working with you, is setting up clear systems for them. And I can't stress this enough. because I have seen so many great companies with great possibilities for growth fail because they don't turn their system, their workflow into processes. People are unclear what they do. There is huge lack of delegation, and founders burn out. And the more I talk, the more I understand how many more problems we need to cover, we need to overcome in order to be successful. We need to delegate properly. We need to create clear operational systems for our team. We need to make sure we refine them down the road. That's an immense amount of work. So we need to be strong enough in order to succeed. And if we follow these frameworks, we are going to succeed. That is why it is important for you as a visionary to set up core ideology, core purpose, to make sure everybody is on the same page, to talk to your team on constant basis, daily, monthly with leadership, annually and quarterly with your leadership again, one-on-one meetings with your team members, in order to make sure that everybody follows the goal, and if there is a problem, you identify it right away. So you need so now recapping what we went over in this video, and there's a lot, so much more we need to discuss, is we need to make sure we get right people to our team, ideally A players, and because market is very scarce, it's not always you are going to get A players. It would be sometimes practically impossible, but at least you get B players who are more inclined to be A players, and you put resources and efforts into helping them grow. Second, you need to have core ideology. Link in a below video more in depth what's core ideology and how it can be implemented, and EOS, which is not necessarily EOS, but at least in the beginning of growth of your business, basic procedures in a company, which are every process needs to be written down. Everybody needs to be clear what they do. Everybody needs to be clear about their measurables, their goals and targets for month, quarter, a year. You have basic workflow like daily stand-up meetings, leadership meetings, and if you have that set up, this will give your business a system that should start functioning without your heavy involvement once people are trained to follow those instructions and the process. So which also means that you need to, especially in the beginning, when your business just grows, you need to be heavily involved in architecting operations and processes, which can be written instructions, videos for team to watch with clarity what needs to do in this or other scenario. I personally like having every process in the company flowchart, and most importantly, we need to make sure we are consistent, because growing business is like a flywheel. Once you give it enough force, it starts rotating with lesser amount of force needed to keep going. So it's not going to be easy first years, especially when company starts to grow. But if you give enough force to that flywheel, it will start to rotate by itself. If you put everybody in a team in a right seat of the bus, it will start to rotate easier and probably without necessarily your involvement. With this said, it was great talking to you. I have my link in description if you want to consult with me. And if you have any question, feel free to drop a comment and I will get back to you. Thank you very much. Let's win together. Let's develop and architect successful businesses together that are going to serve those around us, and let's keep ourselves attached to truth, because that's the only thing that can set us free. Have a good day.